The signs of the times. Now, most of you have been on trips before, and you're driving, and if you're married, she'll say, "Are we lost?" And you're constantly looking for what? Signs, right? You're trying to see where you're going. And, but you know, as we look at our time in our society today, from Hollywood to the world's major news outlets, from the Bible to the ancient Mayan calendar, it seems like everywhere we turn in our day, there are signs of the times. It seems like it is being proclaimed day in and day out, from the marketplace to the places of plenty, the palaces of plenty, everywhere, except the church. Now, Floyd and Maureen, you've been in the church a long time. You know this sermon, these sermons have been preached for a long time. But we still don't give up, because we know the day gets closer as the day goes by. But for some odd reason, for the most part, the churches are remaining silent with this whole 2012 thing. And what I'm trying to do today is not say, okay, let's go into panic mode. What I'm saying is that the church should be blowing the trumpet. The church should be the one who's saying, prepare, for the end of the world is coming. Jesus, his disciples, they were interested in what would be taking place. It's how will we know? What will be these signs? And they questioned Jesus, and in Matthew chapter 24, verse 3, as he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, "Tell us, when will these things happen? What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Well, Jesus didn't say, well, you know, I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm not going to panic you. I'm not going to get you all upset about things. He told them. He told them the truth of the times. He wanted his disciples to be prepared. He wants us to know these signs and be prepared for what is coming our way. And I can tell you, you could probably preach a sermon on this every day for a year or longer from the scriptures that are out there and the prophecies in the Bible that talk about it, and you wouldn't get done. Matter of fact, I think there's a preacher on TV that does it every week. Been doing it for several years. Well, last Sunday I told you that I would be talking about why there should be such an urgency for us to be telling others about Jesus Christ. And this message is the reason why. Although we do not know the hour or the day, the end of times may be upon us. And if they are, many of our family and friends will never see eternity with Christ, but spend eternity in hell. So we're going to look at some of the signs that are in Matthew chapter 24. The sign of false prophets. Jesus answered and said to them, "See to it that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will mislead many." But you know, it didn't take long after Christ ascended into heaven that there were false prophets, false Christs. They're out there proclaiming that they were Jesus or they were the Messiah. So that's nothing unusual. Jesus said, beware, they'll be coming. But today we have a new kind of Messiah, a new kind of false Christ. It is under the mask of any religion but Christ. We have a world order that is ready to take over and make this world a better place, they claim. But it doesn't include Christianity. Any religion but Christ. Rahm Emanuel said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And when we have the world on fire and revolution in the streets, the new world order with its false Messiah will be ready to promise peace to any and all who will bow down and worship it. The sign of war. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of war. See to it that you are not frightened, for these things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. President Woodrow Wilson said of World War I, "This is the war to end all wars." World War I was a horrible waste of human life. Estimates are that 1,357,800 people died in that war. From death, from the war itself, or from disease that followed. But it wasn't the end of all wars. Just a few decades later, we are at war again. At this time, the estimates range from 50 to 70 million people died in World War II. Not just from the war, but from the ravages of the war. The disease, the starvation, the sickness. Freezing to death. Since the end of World War II, over 80 million people have died at the hands of wars within nations themselves, or nation against nation. Jesus said there'll be wars and rumors of wars, but he said these are only the birth pangs. Natasha knows what that's all about, right? The birth pangs. But we are now in the next World War. I believe we are. This war is a war against an enemy that has no country. It is an enemy that is led by a few Islamic extremists that find disaffected youth in every country, including our own, who are willing to give their lives to honor a dead man, Muhammad. Most wars we have fought have been on foreign shores. This war is being fought on our own land. It is not a question of if, it is only when, that this new enemy will destroy several more thousand Americans right here in America. Our government doesn't hide that. They know it's going to take place. They just don't know when. If they could get control of the oil, we could see some major problems. We see, just the other day, an extremist Islamic cleric that was kicked out of Canada was arrested coming over the border in the back of the trunk of a car in San Diego, the border down there. He had flown from his country to South America, to Mexico, came by bus, and was smuggled in with new papers with a Mexican name, coming in to bring that horrid message he has to kill Americans. We see this war taking place. But you know what's interesting, because usually wars are financed by their own governments or financed by people that are in those areas where they live. This war is being financed by you and I. Because every time we buy and fill up our car with gas, with oil that comes from overseas, where's that money going to? It's going to countries that aren't very friendly to us. Every time we buy stuff made in China, which is all hard not to do nowadays, that money goes back to China. Much of the business is owned by the Chinese government for their war machines, and they take and send their equipment, they sell it to the enemies of America. We are at war, or we are at sleep time. We don't see it taking place. The next sign is a sign of great disasters. Jesus said, in various places there will be famines and earthquakes, but these are the beginning of the birth pangs. Famines. Famines aren't just because there's no rain. Famines are caused by war. The famines during war kill more people than what took place in World War I and World War II itself from fighting. And it hasn't changed. When countries are at war, the crops can't be planted. When they do get planted, they get burned out by the enemy. And the people starve and die. It has been said that this world is just one bad crop away from a world food crisis. And we are now entering that world food crisis. The price of corn and soybeans, for the benefit of the farmers, is a record high. But if you live in a country where you're living on $1 a day, you've just been cut down to maybe one meal a day, if you can afford that. The world market levels are increasing not just because of, people are hungry and buying it, but because of crop failures around the world. In Asia and throughout Africa, the crops are dying, the rice crops are dying because of a blight. And in our country, we've had scientists that have figured out how to solve this problem, but the governments over there won't allow the people to plant those rice seeds. They're resistant to blight. And their own people die. Here in South America, the soybean crops are failing this year because of drought. That's why our soybean prices are so high here. Here in America, this last year, acre after acre of soybeans died out with what is called sudden death syndrome. They don't know what the cause of it is, but the beans just die. And food prices skyrocket. Check your grocery bill later. It just keeps going up and up and up. And we can probably do okay. The price is going up for some time in our country. But we got a world out there of people who don't have what we have. And when people get hungry, they're going to fight for something, aren't they? It won't only take somebody who say, hey, follow me. Follow me. I've got a plan. It seems in this world that we have gone from one crisis to the next. We have a worldwide network of media that puts it right in front of us at dinner time. If we watch TV during dinner time, or on the news, the newspapers, from tsunamis caused by earthquakes to massive hurricanes. You got Australia with a flood that was bigger than Texas and New Mexico combined. And now there's a super cyclone heading to that same area. The earthquake in Haiti. Great disasters taking place. And there is a purpose behind them. It is to get the people to wake up. To realize that time doesn't just go on forever. There is an end to our lives. Sometimes quicker than what we think. With hundreds of thousands dying every year now from great disasters. It should wake up we as a church to the immediacy of sharing the gospel with the dying world. Yet Jesus said these were just the birth pangs of what was to come. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be around to see what happens when the Great Tribulation takes place. I want to be out of here. I just can't imagine.